Okay, so we can already see here that the sun is on this side, Earth is right there, you're like a little person. And so what we'll see when I play the simulation is that half of the sun, half of the Earth is always lit up and half of it's always in darkness. Half of the moon is always lit up and half of the moon is always in darkness. When we are on Earth, we're looking up at the moon and we see total shadow, and it looks like this from our perspective. So here's like if we were out in outer space and we were looking at this going around, and this is what we see from Earth. So I'm just going to play this and we're just going to watch what it looks like. So it's daytime for you, and then it's sunset, and then it's midnight, and so we're going around, we're having days, and as the moon is going around, you can see that half of it is always lit up. However, what we see from Earth is this. It looks like it's getting more full. It's not actually getting more full, it just looks like that because what we see is different as it goes around. So it's continuing to look more full. So maybe you've seen this in the night sky. When you look up at the moon, sometimes you can't see it, sometimes you see a little tiny bit, sometimes you see a lot. We know that the moon changes every night, but we don't always pay attention to how it's changing. And so it's getting more and more full looking. Okay, so we had our full moon. Now it looks like it's getting less full. And so I think sometimes we think, well, it's getting less sunlight, but the truth is it's always getting half lit. It's always, half of it is always getting sunlight. So the amount of light hitting the moon is not changing, but the amount of the lit up side we see is changing. So I'm going to pause it here. Okay. So maybe you've noticed, that there were some names up here. And so the first phase that we need to understand is called a new moon, and that is like what starts a new lunar cycle. And so when we click waxing crescent, so that's about 3 days later, but anytime that you see some of the moon but not quite half of it, that's called a crescent. And because it's on its way to a full moon, it's a waxing crescent. And so it would look like a little tiny sliver of the right side is lit up. Next is the first quarter, so it looks like the whole right half is lit up. And then a waxing gibbous is almost full, but not yet. And then a full moon is when the whole moon is lit up. And you can see what it looks like from here. So if you're on Earth and you look up, you can see that this whole lit up side is shining, and that's what we see. And so then after a full moon is a waning gibbous. So a waning gibbous and a waxing gibbous are kind of like opposites, and they're on either side of the full moon. So waning means it's getting less full looking. So here you can see it's almost all lit up. The difference here now is what side is lit up. So here, the right side is almost all lit up, but here, the left side is almost all lit up. And then after that is the third quarter, which is like the opposite of the first quarter. And then we have our waning crescent. And so you can see a little bit of the left is lit up. Whereas a waxing crescent, it's a little bit of the right. So crescents mean like little sliver of the moon is showing. And again, it's getting half sunlight, but we only see just a tiny little sliver. So that's how moon phases work.